Hi, I'm Jin, comic writer and artist, creator of the webcomic series High School Romance and Saturday AM's Zero King of Thieves, and this is Making a Page. Welcome, friends, to the very first episode of Making a Page, the YouTube series where I record myself drawing an entire page of comic and we just go through it. This episode, we'll be watching the creation of page 2 of the final chapter of High School Romance. So as you can see, as we start off, just straight away, I really enjoy creating comics digitally. And I think the great thing about this particular page that I recorded is it'll show a great deal the benefits of doing comics digitally. You'll see it quite soon, actually. It's just to create comics, it gives you this huge amount of flexibility, as you'll see in a second. See how I've just moved that face over to the left a little because I realized that I've drawn it in the wrong spot. And this is just like one of the tiny benefits of doing stuff digitally, but there'll be more examples of other stuff that we do in a bit, just like now. So here you can see I've just imported a picture for the background, and what this picture is actually is a render of a 3D model I created in another program called 3ds Max. So what I do for all my reoccurring environments in my comics, I like to build 3D models of them in 3ds Max and then just sort of use the camera within 3ds Max and just render it out, and then import it into Clip Studio Paint, which is where I draw my comics. That way I don't have to continually redraw and do perspective lines and all that sort of tedious work when it comes to drawing all my environments. So that's another benefit for why I do things digitally. You could do it traditionally by printing it out and using a light box, but just being able to going between the two programs like super quick is a really handy tool for creators. And what you saw earlier as well with Elliot, I actually just sort of drew him jumping over the pole here. When I first drew it, I didn't even worry about his placement within the scene. I just knew the sort of pose that I wanted. Instead of just fixating on making sure it works within the scene, I just made sure that, at least the anatomy was correct and the pose is what I wanted. And then I just sort of moved him into the spot that I wanted him to be. And here's even more example. Like, I constantly just sort of start drawing things out, and then if they're not in the right spot, I can move them. I used to draw comics traditionally a long time ago, and one of the problems that I constantly used to happen to me was that I would draw something that I was really happy with, but I realized it was either too far to the left or too far to the right or too big. And so I love the fact that in digital I don't have to really worry about that too much, and I can just sort of just draw, and then if it's not right, then I'll move it. See, I just moved it again because she was too high. So yeah, this is, so digital is the way to go, I think, for sure. And you notice that in this video, I'm actually drawing things pretty quick. I'm not really planning anything out. I'm just sort of just drawing it. And that's because I actually have already pre-planned it. So I have, the way that I do comics now, this is only a very recent thing actually. But what I do now is I first basically draw the layouts in a book. I don't do them digitally anymore, and there's a reason for that. But yeah, I just draw them in a book, and then once I've done all the pages, then I start doing them digitally. And so that's why you don't see much planning. I'm just sort of just getting straight into it. It's because the planning's already done on my book. And the reason why I draw physically, traditionally instead of digitally, is because there's no Control-Z. The problem with me is that I'm really indecisive, and so if you give me that opportunity to go back on something, I probably usually will take it. And what ends up happening then, for me at least, is that my layouts take way too long. I could be working on a layout for a page for a whole day, and it's just this ugly little sketch which means nothing. And so yeah, that's why I like to do things on paper, because there's that finality to it. And even though I can erase it, erasing it will, you know, smudge other things. And so, yeah, it's just better for me that way. But even though I do it digitally, as you can see here, I'm still doing red lines, and I try and make it look as much like pencil as possible. And then I go over it with ink. So here we are. I'm starting the inking process. I ink with the textured pen in Clip Studio Paint. I think it gives like a real traditional feel to it. And I don't mess with any of the, I've sort of set the thickness of the line that I want, and I just use pen pressure sensitivity to sort all that out from this point forward. Yeah, and as you can see here, I've become quite confident with inking digitally. I now use a Wacom Cintiq Companion, which is the all-in-one tablet screen, like the standalone computer, and which has really helped a lot with the speeding up process of drawing comics. And this way, you know, you don't have that detachment. You know, if you're a digital artist and you're working with like a traditional tablet like a Bamboo or an Intuos, you have that detachment where you're looking at the screen but you're drawing it on the table, and you know, being able to just draw directly on the screen and knowing where your pen line will be, it really speeds things up. And so I can do these nice confident lines opposed to like drawing slowly and like, oh, I'm off Control Z. And here, like this, I'm not doing as much. There will be Control Z's. Obviously, you'll see me going back on a few lines, but it doesn't happen that often anymore. So I use Clip Studio Paint. I mentioned that before, and it's a really powerful program. I much prefer using Clip Studio opposed to Photoshop when I'm creating pages. Like, I love Photoshop, don't get me wrong, but I think the fact that Clip Studio, or as it was previously known, Manga Studio, is that it is designed specifically for creating comics. And so you have so many tools there, like you'll see it again later, but using rulers. And so in Photoshop, you don't really have anything like that where you can rule a straight line, but you can still deal with the thicknesses there. As you can actually, you can see I'm just experimenting with something here. These are one of the special rulers that you have in Clip Studio Paint, though I couldn't find the one that I was looking for, so now I just did it by hand. But yeah, they have a lot of tools that you can use. I'll use another one later, and I'll show you that. But yeah, if you have never used Clip Studio Paint before or Manga Studio before, I really recommend using it. There's so many great things. As you can see here, see that purple on the outside of the panel? It's basically like a mask, and so since this is designed for drawing comics, as you can see on the right hand side, there's all these layers there, and each layer is a panel. And so when you're creating panels, it already splits them up in different layers, and so that's why you won't have your artwork bleeding outside the panel or doing anything like that. So yeah, it's a really, really powerful tool, and yeah, I wholeheartedly, you know, recommend it to anybody who loves drawing comics or wants to draw comics more. So yeah, me cheating my background by just drawing over my 3D model. Here, the back of Max. It's funny, I think here with Max you'll see me do it a little bit later, but I still wasn't 100% about his pose in this panel. So I'll be messing around with it a little bit and end up going with what I started with. So here we are. I'll be using a special ruler now. So here, this is a parallel ruler. So you just draw the line, and then every line you draw from that point will be within that parallel line. And so you can do really awesome speed lines like this, and you don't have to rule every single one out. Every line you draw will be along that parallel axis. And you can do it with curved lines, and you can do it with circles and stuff like that. Just really thoughtful stuff for comic book creators. And I think I use it again here to make the boom look kind of cool. Yeah, boom, 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 boom. It's really cool looking. I don't think I've done a whole page like this before and just watch myself. Sometimes I impress myself. I'm just like, I was really clever when I did that. But when I'm in the moment, that's not how I feel. Another really awesome thing about Clip Studio is you'll see here that those are just filling, and the fill tool is like really awesome. You'll notice when you use the fill tool in like Photoshop, you'll get those glowy white lines. And like, since I guess the creators, Smith Micro, I think they call the creators of Clip Studio, are specifically targeting comic book creators. They know that people want to fill colors in for coloring, and so you'll see me use it again when I start coloring the page. But it speeds up the process so much. Like before, I used to make lasso tool selections and then use fill. See here, I just went boom, 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 just filled it all in. And it even works with gaps, because sometimes you have gaps in the line and sort of figures out, we maybe don't want to fill this. It's not perfect, and you have to like fix it up a little bit here and there, but most of the time, like, look at that, boom. You don't have any glowy things from the other from the lines. It's just, yeah, it's awesome. I think when you're shading your characters, this might be a tip, I don't know. You don't necessarily need to. I think well, if you look carefully, you'll notice that the shading of where the shading is on my characters changes panel per panel, and then in continuity, sometimes it doesn't really make any sense. And what I think with comics, which is really cool, is that you can frame each panel individually, if that makes any sense. And so what I tend to do is that I just make the lighting look cool for that panel. But if you do that, you have to make sure that the lighting makes sense completely in that panel. So if, for example, the shading here is sorted to the right on a character, then on all of them it should be mostly to the right. I'm now looking at it and watch me break my own rule. But this one, what I'm mainly doing is like the light is coming from the top. I know that there's some on the right of Elliot, but that's mainly to look cool. But I think Candy is mostly okay. Oh no, I'm just gonna go against what I said. But yeah, I sort of, it's really interesting. I sort of created rules of how certain things are shaded in High School Romance. If you go back through my comic, you'll notice that Max's hair is shaded the same every page, regardless of where the lighting is from. And I don't know, I sort of just like, it made it easier for me, but it also has this like nice consistency, and it I don't know, it kind of works. You know, if you know the rules, then you can break the rules. That's what they say. Or if you're lazy, you can just break the rules. Now, so yeah, this is pretty much finished coloring. Yeah, Clip Studio makes everything super easy. But yeah, maybe in the future, if you want me to go into more detail about how I do certain things, please leave a message in the comment, or, you know, contact me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and then I can make sure that next time I do one of these making of pages, I can highlight that. I like using screen tones now. Ever since I got Manga Studio, it makes screen tones. It's literally on the top right hand corner in layer properties, there's a screen tone button, and it makes whatever you've just done look like an awesome screen tone. Like, man, this program, I love it to bits. And there's even like flower screen tones, which I use for Candy's dress right now, though I noticed that once I finish doing this, you barely notice that she has flowers on her dress. But, you know, it's there. It's consistent with every other page that I've done with her. Lettering is also really good. It's also inbuilt into Clip Studio, all vector based. It's just, yeah, very cool. So yes, if you're creating comics or manga, you really want to try out this program. And I think here I just start doing a little bit of final touches. Yep, I forgot when I looked back on this page. I know what happened. I looked back on it and then realized I forgot the shading for the stuff in the background. So I went back and did it, and I screwed up there. Yay, digital, or I can go back on things that I've done. So yeah, this is nearly done here. Just a little bit of shading. Those are the shadows coming from the rails in the window. And so there we are. That's the making of a page. In total, this page took 2 hours and 5 minutes, I think. I've sped it up to a 15-minute video, but you know, hopefully watching that you get some ideas of how a comic book page comes together. Maybe you have some questions, or maybe you want to learn more about some stuff. But I hope this video is interesting and maybe eye-opening to people who want to create comics, or if you do create comics, you've seen things that you didn't know, or maybe you watched me and said, Jin, what you did was super inefficient. I know a better way. So yeah, leave everything in the comments below, and yeah, I hope you had fun. If you enjoyed this episode of Making a Page and would like to see more and content like it, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you check out my comic, High School Romance. You can read it all for free at highschoolromancecomic.com or on Webtoon. If you want to learn more about Zero, King of Thieves, and other cool series, make sure you check out Saturday AM. And if you'd like to support me and get some cool, early, and exclusive content, please consider supporting me on Patreon, where only $1 will access all of my Patreon perks. And finally, you can catch me on Twitter and Instagram with the handle @JazzyJin, or on my Discord server. All the links you could possibly need will be in the description below. Thank you for your support, and see you in the next video.